Hey, this is Rice Bonds Montana DeYoung back here with you again. I took a closer look at a card that has been sort of on my mind for probably the better part of a year now since it first became known that it was available. It's a card that is another top 30 card in 1990s baseball insert sort of lore, but it is not inherently beautiful to look at. So I've long sort of put off trying to find it, and even when I did find it and it was made available to the world, I didn't jump at it, and it was a long process, but I finally did go ahead and snag that card. And the card I snagged is from Fleer. And I just want to talk a little bit about Fleer. I'm far from a baseball card historian, but I do know that from what little I know, when I think of baseball cards and sports cards in general, I really do think of four brands, baseball cards in particular. Topps, obviously. Then behind Topps, you've got Upper Deck, Donruss, and Fleer in any order. I'm not really sure which one of those three brands after Topps takes sort of the second most important, the silver medal, I guess, for importance in baseball cards. But I do know that for me, it's one of the most important and hallowed brands. What I didn't know is, as I did some research about Fleer, I found out that they first released a baseball card set in 1923. They're an old company. They're a defunct company that doesn't exist anymore. But at the time that they came out with these cards, they were the oldest company around. They're far older than Topps and Donruss, obviously, and Upper Deck, obviously, since Upper Deck was what 89, Donruss was what 81, and Topps was 52. And the first Fleer set was made in 1923. It's a really obscure set, but it exists, and there are cards known to exist from that set. I don't think a full set of 1923 Fleer has ever been found. That's how rare those cards are. But just to know that of the four major brands of baseball cards from the era that I care about, Fleer is by far the oldest, and older even than the likes of Gowdy, the famous brand of cards where there are some key Babe Ruth cards among others to get. So Fleer is a storied card company. That goes without saying. And that doesn't even get to the fact that they were the creators of the 1986 Michael Jordan rookie card. That doesn't even get to the part where they adapted in the 90s as well or better than any company. They came out with so many key cards from the era. I mean, you've got the EX cards, the Essential Credentials. You've got you've got Fleer Flare Legacy. Um, you've got Metal Universe, of course, when Fleer and Skybox joined forces. I mean, you've got Fleer Brilliance with the 24 karat. The list just goes on for how important Fleer was in particular to the 90s, but really just to cards overall. And so that's just a long lead in for me thinking about why this card is important, why this card that I got recently is so important to the hobby and to the community. And I think that that's part of the reason. I think that the story that I've sort of learned about Fleer, and the story that I wanted to tell about Fleer sort of makes this card that much more relevant. And some of you won't be surprised by this, but I finally landed the Fleer Tradition from 1998, starting 9. This card is out of 9. This is 4 out of 9. There are only 9 of these in existence, as far as anyone knows. Fleer's had some trouble with some of its one of ones not being quite as rare as we all thought they were. But for all intents and purposes, as far as anyone knows, there are only 9 of these. This is a legendary and key card in 90s circles. It's not beautiful. The foil is very plain. Like, have a look at the base card, right? I mean, there's almost no difference between the base card and the rarefied parallel. It's just the blue foil and the starting 9 stamp and the numbering, really. But it's hugely important and really, really admired in the hobby. I was talking to a friend about why this card is so important, and what I came up with was that this is really the first, most important, lowest numbered parallel of a base card from the base set that anyone had ever seen by a long shot. I'm fuzzy on my 90s history right now, so I can't think off the top of my head what the next rarest parallel of a base card from one of the 4 key flagship sets in all of baseball card history than this. So it would be like having a parallel of a base card from flagship Topps, Donruss, Upper Deck, or Fleer. And in this case, it's Fleer. And I think that's why the starting 9 is of particular importance, because base cards really are where baseball cards sort of got started. And as 90s fans, we love the parallels and we love the inserts. Um, and we love the exotic products that came out of the 90s, like Metal Universe and Flair. But Fleer in 1998 rebranded horribly to Fleer Tradition. So Fleer Tradition since 1998 and before I think it went out of business was the flagship property, the flagship name, and the flagship product released by Fleer. Basically, Fleer Tradition is the successor to just regular old Fleer. I, as somebody who wasn't around in 1998 looking at baseball cards, always wrote Fleer Tradition off as just one of those many fancy sort of subsets or more luxurious alternate sets that just never took. But I was wrong about that. This is Fleer. This is flagship Fleer. You're looking at a base card from a flagship of one of the most important companies in all of baseball history. And I think that is why this card is as important as it is. And I talked to my friend who picked up his guy from the same seller, and we were just discussing whether I should sort of cave in on price at long last and finally just get this card that's been sort of sitting out there and just sort of gnawing away at me, and I've been trying to get it for months and months and months, and I finally just decided to just cave to the price and snag it. It came, on the heels of me snagging another very, very important but not particularly beautiful 90s card, the 1999 Black Diamond Mystery Numbers Emerald. But I've always said that a picture like this, Bonds' defensive prowess is underrated, even though he had 8 Gold Gloves. By many advanced metrics, he was one of the finest fielders who ever lived. So he had a lot of tools. He was elite in a lot of ways, and I love cards that showcase some of what Bonds brought to the game, and it wasn't just power hitting, and it wasn't just hitting for average, and it wasn't just hitting home runs and stealing bases. So here he is prowling left field in his final Gold Glove season, 1998. It's it's a kind of out of body experience that I'm having right now. I don't really believe that I have this. It's crazy that I do. I mean, it's one more feather in the cap. It's a hugely important card that any fan of the 90s would want of their player. It's a huge set because this is a 600 card flagship base set. So every player basically in 1998 has one of these. So it can be widely collected and collectible. It's an important card. It is also part of the ranking where I rank basically the top 30 cards and put them into tiers from the 90s. This card is very high on that list. So both these cards actually appeared on that list, begrudgingly to me because I didn't ever have the pleasure at the time of having them, but knowing what people have said about these cards over the years, knowing the importance that this card in particular has in 1990 circles, really makes this card a huge addition for the collection, and one that I will be very, very proud to add. Um, and while neither this card nor the Emerald Mystery Numbers are on my list, my hot list of cards I absolutely need to get ASAP, they are there in the back of my mind. They made my own personal top 30 list of most important inserts and parallels from the 90s. And they did even before I had them. So I'm not now saying this card is more important than it is because I got it. I tend to do that sometimes, just to sort of justify a pickup. But in this case, before I had these cards, I already believed them to be among the most important in our hobby and our era. So it's a big day to have gotten this. It's been a while. It's been sort of sitting there on my desk for a while. I haven't had the chance or occasion to open it up, but I wanted to do it on camera and talk to you guys about why this card is important in general and why it's important to me. It's another huge card. It is not cheap, but it may be a bargain in the long run just because I still feel that Barry Bonds is underappreciated by the sport and the hobby. All right, guys, that's it. That's all I got for you. Until next time, we'll see you guys later.